Hello and welcome to GM Tips time number 2. I'm trying to do this. This video today is debunking the myth that Pathfinder is a hard system to learn. And I am going to debunk that myth. A lot of you hear positives and negatives from former people who played Pathfinder. You may have watched a video out there. There's several videos out there like DawnForge. DawnForge is out there. I like DawnForge. Great bunch of people. The DawnForge Cast. One of the things that the DawnForge Cast, the guy that heads it up, kind of threw out there is that I hate Pathfinder, and he's out on a walk with his daughter doing one of his updates and logs, talks about how negative it is to learn the system. Nerdarchy has talked about how broken Pathfinder's gaming system is. There's a lot of detractors out there. Ian World, not a huge fan of Pathfinder. They do promote, but they're not a huge fan of. And I understand, because look, there was a huge thing that Stephen Colbert even did that said, which do I choose, Pathfinder or D&D? Which is better? Because Pathfinder spawned from D&D. It spawned from 3.5. So if you want to know the history, I came from the Blue Book days. That was the beginnings. The Blue Book basic book of D&D 1, as they call it, or just Dungeons and Dragons. It wasn't even AD&D then. So that's where things started. And there's a lot of negatives out there. Maybe some of you have tried to figure it out and go, oh my gosh, or heaven forbid, gone to a Pathfinder Society session. Don't get me wrong, I like Pathfinder Society. And people like my local people like Stephen will tell you, I love GMing at PFS sometimes because it is fun. It is a fun thing to go do. It's organized play. And again, organized play is much more rigid. You got to understand that. Pathfinder Society is trying to come up with a thing that is repeatable everywhere. And so they don't let you do a lot of the things they would in a home game. Please understand that. What is Pathfinder Society for? It's great to take a break if you don't want to DM or GM. It's great to go out and have fun. What are you doing, Bug? Do not play with the ornaments, please. Go play with your toys, not the ornaments. The mind of a 6-year-old. I love her to death. Mini GM is just a sweetheart. But sometimes she's devious. Hear that, little one? Devious. Oh, hear that? She goes, because she knows I'm right. I love the Mini GM. She keeps these videos fun and fresh. So they have to make it a lot more rigid. What is Pathfinder Society good for? Like I said, go and play in a one-shot if you just want to get out there, have some fun, advance your character, get some rewards as you go along. More or less, it immerses you into the community of who the Pathfinder people are in your area. And then you can get involved with the home game. But there's other ways to do that. Warhorn will let you find some things in your area, as will Meetup and some of the other things. So there are Pathfinder people out there and people who like to play it. But if you're starting out, what do you do? How do you learn it? What tools, would you ask me, Rick, are important as a GM for us as players to learn, or even as GMs? Thank you for asking. First, get the beginner's box. The beginner's box will take you through the basics, and it has an adventure that you as a DM can learn to GM. It's fairly straightforward. They have a GM's book, they have a player's book, they have a module book. Players don't go through the GM's book because then you spoil the adventure itself. But it gets you through the basics, so try it. It gives you a map in there that is the caverns of some of it, and it is erasable. You can use dry ink on it, you can use wet ink on it, and it's usable and reusable. So these are tools that you want to have. I would get the combat turn counter thing. It's an erasable thing. You're going to ask me, what does that look like? I have it sitting in here, and I don't want to stop the video. Basically, it's a dry erase that has two sides. That has the turns. You can put your players in order. It has magnets. You can put their names on there, and you put them in order, including your monster. And then they have a little turn marker you can advance down, and a little place you can scribble hit points or any other information you may want to know. It's a good thing for $20 to invest in when you're starting out. It's even good for D&D. You can use it for D&D. Okay, so you can use it for your 5e and other games as well. Keep that in mind. the beginner's box takes you through how to work with stats. What are stats? How do they play in? They have some pre-generated characters. They tell you how to generate a character. They even give you things in the margins on what's first, second, third, fourth, and how to go through it. But even with that, it can be a daunting task. So, Paizo came up with a wonderful book. Some people poo-pooed it in the world, and that's us Pathfinders who've been around a while. I've come to let it grow on me as a GM. It's the strategy guide. And we thought, oh, it's going to be a strategy for GMs. No. It is a strategy guide for players, and yes, somewhat for GMs, to get to know the game and what do I want to build. Okay? So the first part's really great. It says, getting the most out of this book. Okay? Important terms are on page 7. Character concept quizzes 10 to 13. So if you don't know what kind of character will best fit you, I see you, Belle. You put on your Belle dress. Like I told you, devious. It takes you through a quiz that then tells you what theme makes sense with that, which is the next section, the character themes. Okay? Then the races. What races do you want to use? And it concises what's in the core rulebook, which, by the way, core rulebook that thick. So if you buy that first to start learning the game, you're going to be like, OMG, I can't do this. Don't. I'm going to tell you. Buy the strategy guide as a hardcover. Buy the core rulebook as a PDF. That way, then, when it refers you to a page in there, you can go to it. But you're not having to read it chapter by chapter. I don't suggest doing the core rulebook that way. You'll never get into the game, ever. Okay? Then, it takes you instructions for using the classes. So, how do you go through your class guides, other character details, playing the games, and then if you want to get into Pathfinder Society. So, I love this. First set of pages is beautiful. They make it concise. See, not a lot of page work. Players in the Game Master talks about, as a player, what you need to know. As a GM, what do you need to know? So let's pick player. As a player, you get to make all the decisions for your character, such as what ability the character learns, equipment your character carries. You also have control over other parts of your character, such as personality, motivations, exactly what he or she says, how the character responds to various challenges. You can have the character try to do just about anything you can imagine, and even if the rules don't describe exactly how to resolve your action, you and the GM can decide it. The GM's your partner in crime. They can figure out what works. Notable concepts in the thing. So, encounters, combat, campaigns, they talk about those just briefly. Key terms. What is a player character or PC? What is a non-player character, NPC? What is a level? Why do you want to do that? How does experience play in? Base attacks, BABs. That's the number of modifier to your attack rolls. Higher number means you're better at combat. Difficulty class, how hard it is to do something or overcome it. Armor class, hit points. It talks about going through each of those. And then it goes through the character itself. Then there's the questions. So here's your quiz. And what kind of questions do they ask? When a fight begins, and then it goes A, B, 3, C, D, E, tells you where to go next in your answer depending on how you answer that quiz. So it's leading you to a path. From your scores, you're going to go here, and there's a list of themes, and they even code them, and they have them by each question. So let's pick one. They talk about a battle priest. The battle priest channels divine power into battle, uses spells to become a stalwart frontline fighter, and can heal wounds. So it takes you through what classes are there, what kind of things do you need to know. And then it says go to page 52 for the cleric. Or in this case, now that they have the war priest, which is a mix, a good GM can refer you to a war priest. See, it's not as hard as it has to be, folks. So it takes you to what you think. And they have like 26 of these. So shield fighters, smashers, stargazers, thieves. tricksters, traditional mages, troubadours, and from there, it takes you to the races. So if you want to choose a race, so look at this, how straightforward this is. That's as concise as you get on a race. In the books, they'll give you tons of words because they want to explain to you everything you want to know. Maybe you don't want to know that in the beginning. Maybe you just want to know, what are my ability score bonuses and negatives? What are my saving throw plus and minuses? What are my skill modifiers, if any? And then any other traits I might have by being that class. And it gives it to you in a concise and easy to follow format. Then you go from there to a class guide. What is a class guide? How does it take you through? What are alignments? What do they mean? What are your ability scores on the table with pluses and minuses? See how concise the strategy guide makes it? This took what the core rulebook didn't do right and made it easier for a player like you or a GM to learn the system. Okay, weapon and armor proficiencies. How do those play in? What kind of what are feats? How do those play in? What are class features, which are a little different than feats? How do those play in? Spell casting. And see, they don't do 10 pages. They do 1 page of concise things, and they'll refer you to pages in the core rulebook if you want more information. Nice to have somebody point you the right direction, isn't it, Mr. DawnForge? I know. I should know your name by now by watching enough of your videos. I love DawnForge, and I chide them a little bit and Nerdarchy, but I love you guys, and I do watch your videos, and I wouldn't go away from you guys. But when you're wrong, sometimes you're wrong. And opinions are great sometimes, but your opinions can turn people that want to play off to a system. Don't do that. Talk about the positives and negatives, but if you got a personal peeve with the system, leave it go. Please. That's not what we're here for. Yes, sweetheart. What? What's the matter, Buck? I'll get it here in a second. So, she found a bug. Unless you want to get a piece of paper and squish it. So, these type of things make it easier. And you were saying, and our fine DawnForge person was out on his little walk with his daughter. Love her. She's an adorable little girl, by the way. Just sweet and adorable. He's a good guy, too. But he was talking about how it took him 2 hours to make a character. You didn't have somebody to help you the right way. It took you 2 hours. Now, backstory, yes, that can take you 2 hours. But if you're creating a character and it takes 2 hours, you go in the wrong direction. It should take 20 minutes, even with Pathfinder. So then it talks about selecting skills and feats. It gives you tips on it. And again, how to read a spell. Isn't that nice to have somebody lay that out to you and what means what? Leveling up. It talks about what your modifiers are. And those wonderful things are under each class in this guide. What your leveling up will be. How many hit points you get. How many more skill points do you get. What your BAB goes up. What your fortitude, reflex, and will saves go up. And any powers you get. Kind of cool. Talks about attacks and weapons. How things stack. Makes it easy. Puts it into 1 page. Explains a character sheet. Front and back. And then it goes through the class and it talks about what ability scores, which the core rulebook again fell down with and didn't show you. What ability scores do you need for a barbarian? What does it recommend? What skills do you get as a barbarian? And then it tells you on the side what alignments you can use, what your base attack bonus will be, what your saving throws will be, and do you want to select this as your class? What is it good for? Then it talks about weapons and armor proficiencies, feats that it recommends. It recommends what feats to choose. Now, you don't have to, but it gives you a good start of feats that make sense with that class. And then what kind of class features are there? Hey, fast movement and rage power with a barbarian. Those are important for you to know. And then what page? And then it says you can rage the number of rounds per day equal to 4 plus your con modifier. Again, not easily called out in the core rulebook. But in the strategy guide, it does. And then leveling up, and look, like I promised, it goes all the way up through level 20, and what new things you get, what suggestions it might make. So at 12th level, it says, consider taking Fearless Rage Power. This makes you immune to most types of fear-based attacks when raging. So again, to those people who say it's hard to choose what feats and builds work best, no, it's not. This guide will take you through. And then once you get familiar with the system, if you want to branch out with things called archetypes, which are different spins on classes. So like a rogue, there's 16 different archetypes. You want to be a river rat? Do you want to be a smuggler? Do you want to be a roof runner? Do you want to be a cut purse? Do you want to be a bandit? Do you want to be a burglar? It takes you through what it gives up and what you will replace it with in the build to make you more adept at it. So you might lose some of the basic class powers, but it's okay. It tailors it to what you want. And then there's things like the advanced class guide where they take two classes and smash them together to make things like a brawler, a swashbuckler, a war priest. It takes you through and helps you to have that mashup that you want to have that makes you more effective. And again, you can play those things out. But the strategy guide works with the core classes and makes them more fun and gives you suggestions. And then at the very end of it, it takes you through a combat round. What's combat? What's diplomacy? How do you go through DCs? How do you do all these other things? It talks about all the most important things that go with the game. So in this one book that has 162 pages, which is much more like the player's handbook in D&D, it simplifies what you need, where to look, how to understand. It talks about, like, for instance, if you're standing in a square and you have enemies around you, how does an attack of opportunity work? How do I get surprised? How am I caught flat-footed? What is flanking? How does that affect? What is an advantage? How does it work with your bonus rolls on what you're attacking the creature with? It simplifies things. So, GMs and players, I don't care how long you've been in the game, the strategy guide simplifies all those rules to an easy to follow format. If you want more text, it refers you to whatever book in the system you need to look at. So the advanced class guide, the core rulebook, the ultimate combat, the ultimate, it goes up to certain ones. It doesn't have ultimate intrigue in there and some of the other things. Eventually they'll probably revise it and update it for all the books. Nice idea, Paizo, and I would love to see you do it. But see, it's not as hard as you think it is. Oh, it's rules heavy and cumbersome, as much as the GM lets it be. My sessions are not rule cumbersome. Ask the guys. And if I don't know it myself, my players do. And someone in that game will point out, hey, Rick, you know what? That's how this should have gone. And I'll make an apology and I'll correct any errors. So it doesn't have to be a system that is hard to learn. Rick M. the GM says, get the strategy guide. I love the beginner's box. It's good if you've never done one and you want to do a quick transition. It's worth the $20. This book here is $34, so $54 investment. You pay more of that into a D&D investment than that. So $54. $9.99, or maybe it's up to $12.99 for the PDF of the core rulebook. Then you can add other PDFs for $9.99. Or, God forbid, if you don't want to waste the $9.99, Paizo and D20 SRD have the SRDs and PRDs of all the Paizo books for Pathfinder. Zero cost for the investment. Paizo wants you to play and enjoy the game. Yes, they want to make money, and yes, we'll spend the money when there's something good there. Then you say, well, what about all these player guides and things like that? Those are nice add-on things where they give you more options. The one thing about Paizo, they continue to give you more and more options. Feats, skills, other things you can do. Why? to make the game that much more enhanced and rich to play, and yet challenging at the same time. If if you want a story-based one that's just stories, Numenera, there's other systems I can send you to. They're 100% story-based, very little dice rolls. If that's what you like. Me, I don't. I like the little bit of the fun that the dice throw in there because it is a little bit random. Let's face it, even the best fighter has a bad day. Even the most heroic hero has a bad day where they think they got all of it under control and gee, they don't. Perfect example, look at Hercules with the rock. He goes from having it all together to holy crap, I got hit upside the head and didn't expect this. And what happened? He got his butt kicked. It happens. But what does he do once he gets his butt kicked and he gets mad enough at the bad guy? He gets back on track again. And see, that's kind of how it is in a game. If you're a good GM, if you're a good player, you'll make that work to where the storyline loses nothing. Yes?
I brought the car and the car squished the bug.
The car squished the bug. Good. Then I will go ahead and check for the bug here in a minute. High five. Our little bug killer. Guys, that's part of being a dad. You take a break of whatever doing in whatever cast. So keeping this in mind, the system doesn't have to be hard if you don't make it hard. And yes, if you go into a Pathfinder Society session, you're at the mercy of a rigid system that's there for organized play. Keep that word, first word exact. Organized play. So, DawnForge Cast, Nerdarchy, anyone else, if you played Pathfinder with PFS, I'm sorry, that's not Pathfinder RPG. That's Pathfinder organized play, which means they have to come up with a structure that is rigid, that works. Otherwise, people go running willy-nilly and they can't keep track of things to make it easy to award you advancement points and other things in the Pathfinder Society. It's organized play. Homebrew games, much different. The home-based Pathfinder game is much more fun, quick, on the ball. It is much more fun play. I like Pathfinder Society, don't get me wrong. Ask my local venture captain, Stephen. I like playing from time to time down here, running as a GM. I love it, but it's not my life. My home-based game is my life, and it's what I enjoy. The other is just a distraction from when I'm not playing. Some people, it's the only thing they can get because they can't find the groups. Use Pathfinder Society to find a player group, a bunch that clicks that you can pull together for a home-based game. Much more fun that way. But keep in mind, Pathfinder is not a hard system. It really isn't. And the new books that come out with more and more things allow you more options, more clarity, like the Underwater Adventures, the Ultimate Wilderness, the Occult Adventures for psionics or psychic magic. There's so much more fun you can do. And again, Pathfinder simplified with the psychic magic, what D&D couldn't do in psionics if they tried. So there are things to the game that make it what it is. Don't get me wrong, I love all RPGs. I really do. There are very few I hate and just don't like. And it's usually ones that aren't written well. Pathfinder has its mistakes, but as GMs, we supersede and correct those kind of things with the system. And we help it to become a better system. And I recommend it every day of the week. I love it. I play it. I read it. I live it. I die it. No, I don't live it and die it. I live and die my family. But I enjoy the game. So keep in mind, if you want to go to positive resources on Pathfinder, No Direction is a perfect group. Alex Agunas, Simon. Simon, I'm going to blank on your name. Hang on, I will get Simon for you because I love him. He's a good guy. Simon is another venture captain and player, and he's a really good one if you want to. Munoz, Simon Munoz. Sorry, Simon. God, just smacked me on that. I know your last name. There are a lot of others I could refer you to outside of this that are great people that really know the system, play it, and love it, and can teach you it very quickly. Have great material as well. So keep that in mind. Pathfinder's not a bad game. It's a good game. Yes, 5e is more simplified and easier to run. Easier to pick up, run with, do everything. Pathfinder takes a little more books and a little more cumbersomeness, but it's well worth it. Plus, they have cards. So if you want the rule cards, they have a set of cards that you can get from Paizo for 24 bucks that have the rules. You flip the card as a GM, as a player, it shows you everything there. They have condition cards. So if you get hit with a condition in the game and don't know what it is, you flip the condition cards out. They have social combat cards. They have all kinds of fun little aids that'll help you, but you don't have to have all the books. The aids are worth more than the books. I'd buy the cards over the books sometimes because they give you more. All right, that's it. GM tips, GM Rick, debunking the myths about Pathfinder. Go out, get the strategy guide, get the beginner's box, play it, guys. It's worth it. I'm not just saying this. I love it as a GM. It's a game I'm going to play probably the rest of my life until they put me in the ground. So, a game I love. It's dear to my heart, and I want to debunk those myths. Nerdarchy and DawnForge, I love you guys. I hope you don't. I'm not trying to gripe and put you down, but sometimes if you call something out like that, I'm going to call you to task on it, especially if I'm a guy that loves the system. So, thumbs up, though. You guys do good work. You guys are great casters. Catch their stuff. They do a lot of great stuff in the industry, and they keep a lot of great reviews. So, thanks again, folks. Have a great week.